This is the Royals Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Kansas City Royals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Royals take down the Cubs in Game 2 thanks to an all-time performance from Jac Caglianone, and I'll break down what mattered most in today's Royals Postcast here on the Locked On Royals channel and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Today's episode is brought to you by KALSHI. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. As the Royals win today, we'll be breaking down the plays that matter most, who stood out, and the topic you'll be talking about with your friends, as it was a huge game from Jac Caglianone. From the beginning, bottom of the first inning until he hit his final home run of the game in the seventh inning. It was all Jac Caglianone. If the bullpen does what the bullpen's done recently and blows a ninth inning lead, we even get an opportunity to potentially see him in the ninth inning. And I thought that after having quite a bit of a rough stretch here by his standards, Jac Caglianone broke out tonight and reminded you why he's a guy that you absolutely need to have in the lineup every single game the rest of the way.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
448 in the first inning, 420 in the seventh inning, and then a pair of doubles in between ties the Royals record with 4 extra base hits. The last person to do that was Kendrys Morales in a 3-home run game. I thought that this was an all-time performance from Jac Caglianone. He has really struggled since the All-Star break. It's no secret. He's a guy that is really aggressive and always seems to, when he is in a slump, he tries really hard to get out of it. And since that series in Tampa where he just was en fuego, probably the hottest hitter in Major League Baseball at the time and one of the hottest hitters we've seen in Royals lineup in a while. Since that series has not had really just a torrid stretch of games. If you'll remember, I believe it was the series following or the week following, Vinny Pasquantino comes back, Jac Caglianone's back in right field. And then later on, you also have the All-Star break. He is in the home run derby. He hits a home run against the Padres, but that was really it until a couple of days ago when he finally got a big one against the Minnesota Twins, had a nice hit in that series. But today, against a really solid pitcher in Clay Holmes. Really one of the best pitchers in the National League in Clay Holmes. He had been injured, the tale of 2 different Cubs debuts from yesterday and today. The Royals were really seeing Clay Holmes well. They did not see Kevin Gausman well yesterday. And I think that Jac Caglianone just really set the tone early on in this game. He shows you the ability. I think he's got, outside of maybe 2 guys, you could even throw in, I think that from the left side, it's Ohtani, it's Alvarez, and it's Jac Caglianone in terms of just pure game power, tape measure. I guess Kyle Schwarber as well. He does that on more often than Jac Caglianone does, obviously. But guys where when they're up to the plate, like you are planning when you're at a game, you are planning your trip to the concession stand, the restroom, the beer garden. You are planning that around the 2 and 3 hole hitters in the Royals lineup tonight, Bobby Witt Jr. and Jac Caglianone. That's not to say the rest of the guys are a bunch of scrubs, but it's to say that these guys are unreal players, and we have not seen the Royals have a true power threat from the left side like Jac Caglianone ever. We've seen Salvador Perez and Jorge Soler obviously do it. George Brett had some good pop back in his day. The Royals have been a right-handed pop hitting. That's what the Royals get. Mike Moustakas had a good pop year one year where he went for 38. But from the left side, it's Jac Caglianone, and he has been awesome at times this year. He's also had some real slumps. It has not been a great season for the Royals. If they were better, there might be more opportunities for him to get rest days, for them to play Starling Marte or when Lane Thomas was available to play him. But Matt Quatraro and the coaching staff have kind of been forced by the injuries and by the lack of depth in the organization to let him play through these slumps. And him and Carter Jensen both. We saw Jensen go deep last night. Obviously, 2 homers for Jac Caglianone tonight. I think that is something that a lot of fans are going to grab onto. Well, these guys should have been playing early in the season. They should have been playing every day. And I don't disagree with much of that statement. But I do think that it is important that these guys, if the Royals were winning baseball games or if they were in a playoff hunt and they were playing as poorly as they were, they wouldn't be getting as long of a leash. But it's good. I don't want to say it's good, but there are pros to the Royals having the record they are. They have been forced to go into developmental mode where they have had the opportunity game in and game out to see Jac Caglianone, Carter Jensen, and some of the young guys. Isaac Collins has had his ebbs and flows this season. We've seen Tyler Tolbert have big stretches. From the pitching side, seeing Steven Cruz, what he looks like in a high leverage role, seeing with the pitching staff with the Winder Avila, what he's able to do. They've been able to see what guys can do in a full spectrum, and they were not likely going to be allowed that opportunity if the Royals were competing for a playoff spot. So it is really interesting to see their development. We knew that they are two very streaky hitters. They are also two guys that, in Carter Jensen and Jac Caglianone, they are two guys that are very aggressive. And we've seen it this year with Jac Caglianone where he's flailing at pitches. I even think the at-bat against Bailey Ober the other night, the at-bat that we talked about where he showed a little bit of flame and a little bit of fire, that at-bat, he was flailing. I mean, he was all over the place. He got off a C-minus swing and was able to lift one into right field for a base hit. But it's when you have Jac Caglianone, he's going to be a player that you're going to have to be okay if he hits 225 for a season because he's going to have to hit home runs. You cannot look at the average with him or Carter Jensen. You're going to have to rewire your brain to looking at the OPS, the WRC plus. How are these guys getting on base? Are they chasing too much? How's the swing and miss? What's the batted ball profile look like? And the batted ball profile for Jac Caglianone has looked absolutely insane this season. He's been awesome. And he's had some really tough luck at times. These last couple of weeks, it's been the fact that he's just really been aggressive and whiffing way too much. Carter Jensen, his advanced numbers aren't as great. But for Jac Caglianone, he is a guy that you have to have in the lineup the rest of the season. Hopefully, he stays healthy. I'd like him to be more confident at first base. I'd like to see him play first base the rest of the year, and whether he's first base or DH, I think that the pull and push of him going from first to right, back and forth, like there's not a lot of guys in Major League Baseball. If you look at the best players in terms of wins above replacement, they have their spot in the lineup, they have their spot in the field, and that's it. They have to decide what Jac Caglianone's role is for this team going forward, because you can't jerk him around the outfield. You cannot continue to deploy him in multiple positions. And I think that, when Bobby Witt Jr. started getting comfortable at shortstop once again after he played third to open up his career, that's when the bat started to follow. I think we're seeing that with Jac Caglianone, where when he went back to his original position where he was comfortable with, he started to hit better. It happened last year with Jonathan India and Michael Massey. It has happened with Maikel Garcia when he stopped having to play second base because he was being yanked around all over the place. I mean, that is one thing that I do get frustrated with the current regime, is they are trying to have positional versatility when it's just not needed. And I think that you have to be comfortable with some of these guys in one spot, and it makes things so much easier on the players, where they don't have to worry about, which glove do I need to bring to the ballpark today? Do I need to shag fly balls in the outfield, or do I need to take grounders? I just cannot fathom how much the push and pull of where they're at in the field and in the lineup can change. I mean, I think that going forward, Jac Caglianone is their first baseman. He's their three-hole hitter, and that does not need to change. And the same thing can be said for Carter Jensen behind the plate and in the leadoff spot. That is a luxury that not everybody can afford. But I think the Royals have their 1, 2, 3 for the next 5 years planned out with Jensen, Witt, and Caglianone. And Jac Caglianone was amazing tonight, and he continues to show that he is one of the best young hitters in Major League Baseball. When we come back, Seth Lugo was not too bad tonight, had his ups and downs. The bullpen was a little bit shaky, but found a way to get things done. And Nate Pearson, we got a real look at him in the closer's role. We'll break down what we saw from him when we come back here on the Royals Postcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon, and thank you to our friends at Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back-to-school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on the list, then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. When you look at the school supply list and wonder if you're shopping for one child or if you're opening a small office supply store, I didn't realize first grade required this much inventory. Shopping like this can get out of control trouble if you're not careful. And when the school says your child needs a calculator, headphone, tablet for class, and somehow you're buying another one before the semester is halfway over, since when did kids need so much tech for third grade? So remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. Royals got good stuff out of Seth Lugo tonight. I thought that he was solid for the evening, but I want to touch on the bullpen because I think that it's been fairly shaky. It was not pretty for John Schreiber tonight, getting out of a jam with 27 pitches in the 7th inning, but the Royals were interesting in how they deployed their 3 right-handed pitchers, and I'll break down how Macquachero did that tonight.
This is what you'll be talking about.
I thought it was really interesting that John Schreiber got the 7th inning. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but certainly that he is a guy that has struggled against left-handed pitchers this season. The Royals don't have any lefties in the bullpen, so it's not like they are able to, I was kind of, in my recliner sitting and watching when John Schreiber gets to Pete Crow Armstrong at the top of the order, him facing the go-ahead run, and Pete Crow Armstrong's a lefty. He's not as good against lefties as he is against righties, and we certainly know John Schreiber's struggles against lefties this season have been well on display. But Schreiber gets to face Pete Crow Armstrong because the Royals have 0 lefties in their bullpen. Daniel Lynch is now a starter. Matt Strahm is off and in the unemployment office. Aaron Bummer has elected free agency. The Royals are sitting in a position where they have no left-handed pitchers in that bullpen, and it is kind of interesting to see how they're going to be able to manage it. Usually they kind of play matchups, and that's how I prefer it to be played, especially with lefties who are lefty specialists. That's how I would prefer the managers to play it, especially when a guy like Schreiber struggles so much against lefties. But I thought it was really interesting that they went to him and kept him in as long as they did. And then, of course, going to Steven Cruz in the 8th inning was really interesting to me. And then Nate Pearson got the 9th. And I'm not going to say that it was the wrong decision. Obviously, it all came up well for the Royals. They got Nate Pearson an opportunity with some insurance runs in the 9th inning to have a fairly clean slate to throw against the Cubs. But about halfway through that inning, Nate Pearson, who I think it's going to be a task for Brian Sweeney and Zach Bove and the pitching staff to try and figure out how to work around his fastball that is just, it's got some pop to it. They needed to find, this is a coaching staff on the pitching side that is really good at developing sliders. They did it with Chris Bubich, with Daniel Lynch. They improved Brady Singers, and Michael Wacha as well. They have been able to add and improve sinkers to pitchers in their careers or in their tenure with the Royals. Nate Pearson is an interesting case study because he is a heavy fastball, and you would think with his heavy frame at about 6'6", you would think he would be able to have a downhill slider. Tonight, the slider was actually really, really bad for Nate Pearson. Looking at his arsenal from what he threw tonight, he threw the slider 11% of the time. He threw 2 sliders in his limited metrics, and it was both against right-handed batters, and he just couldn't figure it out. He turned to the curveball, and it was awesome. He got 67% whiffs with the curveball, threw it 6 times, 0 hard hit balls. Only 2 of the 6 were actually in the zone. I think that is a true plus pitch for him out of the bullpen. Outside of his fastball, his 4-seam fastball, he's going to need multiple pitches, whether it's a fastball, curveball, changeup, fastball, curveball, slider. But it's important to have the first 2 pitches in that arsenal figured out already. Seems like they're comfortable with him and his fastball, curveball, and he threw 1 changeup tonight. I think that Nate Pearson can be a back of the bullpen, high leverage player because he has a fastball that nobody else outside of Steven Cruz on this Royals roster can compete with. If they can just get him if they can get him an off-speed pitch, that has to be their task this offseason, this training cycle. They have to be able to give him an off-speed pitch that can give him some damage because he is one of the really intriguing guys going forward for the Royals because he has such a big fastball, big frame, and he profiles like what a closer looks like. If you were to line up the Royals bullpen by, their body frame and just look at them, you would assume that either the 6'7" Steven Cruz or the 6'5" Nate Pearson are their closers. And they're going to have the opportunity this year to do that. And you hope that it goes well and they have a little bit of confidence in not having to add another bullpen arm to next season's roster, which is already, numbers are adding up there. They're going to need to add about 10 arms to this 40-man roster just to be able to get above 500 for next year if they have a wing and a prayer at doing that. But I thought that it was awesome to see him in the ninth inning. I think that he's going to get some opportunities. I think it's going to be a heat check. It's going to be who's hot at that time. Is it Cruz? Is it Pearson? I think they'll figure it out from there. But a really good outing tonight from the Royals all the way around. You saw Bobby Witt Jr. make a dazzling play at shortstop in the hole, Jeter style. 4 extra base hits tonight for Jac Caglianone. No Salvador Perez in the lineup tonight, but the Royals got just enough offense from the usual suspects in the middle of the order. A solid start from Seth Lugo, and now the Royals head into the series finale tomorrow, and they'll be looking to get a series win. But unfortunately, tomorrow I will not be able to give you guys an episode. My mom is competing in the High Rocks Challenge up in Kansas City, so I'll actually not be watching the game. I'll be cheering on a family member there. So I will not be able to give you guys an episode tomorrow, but get your coffee ready. Royals are on the West Coast this upcoming week, and it'll be looking at the schedule, a 9:10 first pitch in LA against the Dodgers on Monday. So get your coffee ready, your tea, whatever you need. We'll be late night Locked On Royals postcast coming up this week, and we'll see you on Monday for another edition of the Royals postcast on the Locked On Royals channel.